Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Maggie. And today's daily is a very special one, and do you remember when I said that we have two flavors of dailies? Either they're really strong, so like the one that was just a few days ago where we had tough love and 51 luck, that was pretty strong. Well, this is definitely one on the weaker spectrum, and what we start out with is soy milk and milk. Milk doesn't really do anything in this situation, because what happens is when you get hit, you essentially increase your tear rate for that room, or at least for some duration, but because with soy milk our tear rate is already capped, meaning we can't really benefit from it, so it's just there for a flavor. If Edmund or whoever was designing this daily was really evil, they would even give us chocolate milk, and I think that would make this daily quite unbeatable, unless maybe you get lucky with some familiars at the start. But nevertheless, we are stuck in this position, so how can we make the best of it? Well, definitely soy milk is good in some situations. I would say that if you get certain items that synergize well with it, you could consider picking up soy milk, and that's something that I've done before. As our first item, I'm not really too keen about it, because it really does tank your DPS. What makes soy milk not so great, even though it sounds okay in theory, you're increasing your tear rate but decreasing your damage, so if the numbers are balanced properly, you might expect that you'll be dealing the same amount of damage, but obviously you have the benefits of just having more synergies. Well, the numbers aren't balanced properly, which means you're actually dealing less damage, but with more tears comes other problems. Not only is it harder to shoot at enemies, because essentially every tear still has the same knockback, if not even more, you're just knocking the enemies back as you keep shooting them, and because you do that, it's much harder to lay the rest of the shots on the enemies, which means that essentially you're missing like 50% of your shots, so your DPS tanks for even more, and that's on top of the fact that the DPS, even if you did hit all of your tears, is still not as good as it was before you picked up soy milk. So okay, it's not looking good for us, but how can we save this run? Well, with soy milk, like I said before, there's really only two ways you can go about it. If you really want to make a soy milk run work, either you want items that synergize well with it, and those are all items which maybe give you a tear effect which is permanent, and for example, I mean Fire Mind or maybe Holy Light Shots. And Holy Light Shots are a great example, because I think they deal 4 times the amount of damage you do, which means that essentially you're dealing the same amount of damage that you would do with regular tears, but just because you're shooting much faster, you're actually dealing AoE damage in a cone, but you're also just producing more tears, which means more Holy Light Shots, and that's a great synergy. Another one is maybe Fire Mind. Well, it's dangerous because there's a lot of explosions going on. If you have Fire Mind, you can essentially just spawn a lot of fires, a lot of explosions, and that also deals quite a substantial amount of damage against enemies and bosses. I would say that the main strength in soy milk is definitely when you can get those combinations, and when you can actually make it happen. It's a very rewarding experience, because you feel like you made soy milk work, and I feel like soy milk is the item which is not respected because it's a good item, but it's an item that makes it challenging. It's like Calamity Ring in Dark Souls. When you pick it up and you can make the run work and actually complete it, I feel like it's a sense of pride, and maybe it has a place in that sense, but I don't really like with how it's balanced. I think it could be made more fun. The problem I mentioned before is when you're knocking the enemies back. There are a few ways which I think we could improve on that. First of all, I think the best idea would be to just remove the knockback. So somehow make the tears not knock back the enemies back. I'm not sure if that's possible with how the physics are implemented in the game, so maybe an alternative would be to actually give penetrative shots. I know what you might say, penetrative shots on soy milk, as an addition, that does seem a bit too powerful. But I don't really think it would be. Sure, I'm not arguing that it would make the item stronger. That's obviously what I'm going here for. But I don't think it will make it overpowered at all. And even if it is, I don't think having one more overpowered item, which I don't think would be overpowered, but for the sake of argument, let's say that it is overpowered. Having one more overpowered item wouldn't be that bad of a thing, especially, I think, because soy milk is a special item, it wouldn't impact the game that much. And I know that's an argument that's a very easy trap to fall into, just saying, just buff every item, just buffing one item won't make the game different or maybe make the game too easy, but of course, I'm just talking about soy milk here, and this is just brainstorming ideas. And with modding, we can try and implement those changes, and I might try to give myself penetrative shots when I pick up soy milk, and I might see how that actually works out, because I'm really interested in making soy milk work. Like I said, I really think it's a neat concept, it's just the numbers aren't balanced properly. So, how did we make this run work? Because you can see we're doing boss rush, which is not something you would expect on a run which I'm claiming is super bad. Well, thankfully we got some familiars which helped us out. Definitely the MVP at the start was the Blues Baby Only Friend, which is the fly that you control around. So essentially we're playing this run as we had Ludovico technique, but the Ludovico technique doesn't scale. I guess Ludovico technique in this case would be bad because that does scale with your damage and our damage is non-existent, so having a familiar which deals constant damage is a great upgrade for us. And Blues Baby's only friend is great in many situations, at least early on, because you can essentially kill enemies, it does AoE damage, it's great against bosses as well because you can essentially just focus on dodging while the fly is doing damage. Overall, it's just a decent item. We also have some other things that we're going for it, and of course when you're in that position, maybe you want something like BFF, so not BFF but the item which increases the damage and how big your familiars are, because essentially that makes it scale a bit better. But also other familiars which just work passively and don't really rely on your damage. I think we all, when we play this game, we pick up Brother Bob and we're like, why does this guy have to have base damage? Why does he have to deal base damage on every tier? Why can't it scale with our damage? And I think this is a good reason why, because you can have runs which have less damage than what you're used to, and you really do need those base familiars who can kind of offset for that. I think there's only two, or maybe even... Yeah, I think there's only two items which actually do decrease your damage, so that doesn't really come up often, but I'm glad that this run it did. The other item, or maybe the other familiar which worked really well for us, was definitely the Meat Boy. Meat Boy really lost its usability to me. I'm not really sure why, but I remember him being much stronger, at least in Rebirth, but that's maybe because there were familiars which weren't as good as him, and now we just have a lot of better familiars, and I feel like he's much worse than he actually is. But what I did is I bought the meat peeler, the potato peeler, I'm not sure, but essentially the item which takes your red heart away and gives you some damage up in return and 1 cube of meat. And because I had 4 health at that point, I decided to trade all of it away, and I got a nice Meat Boy to play around with me. I'm not sure if Meat Boy scales off your damage, I don't think he does, but his padding is pretty bad, which means we can't really rely on him to go on top of enemies and just do damage to them. In this case, Bumbo, someone like Bumbo, is a much better familiar, because I also think he does more damage, but he's also much better in his padding. While Meat Boy really does require you to get quite close to the enemies, so he can actually lock onto them and then just deal damage. And even in that case, if an enemy teleports or disappears, someone like Hush, we don't really stand a chance of him following it and then dealing more damage to it. So in this case, we're kind of constrained with our familiars here, which is also the Lost Fly or the Lost Protector, which is like a between Attack Fly and the Red Fly. What is it called? Isn't it also an Attack Fly? I don't know, but it's the between the Red Fly and the Blue Fly. So it deals quite some damage, but it does have somewhat of a medium range. So combining with all of that, with all those familiars that I just mentioned, we could make the run work. And at this point, actually, our damage is not that bad. I think we could, based on what we have, complete the run with just our base tiers. It would be tedious as hell because it's still not above base damage that we had before, but it's still at least enough in my opinion to just keep going. What's great about this is that we got Judas's Shadow, and when Judas's Shadow doesn't give you enough damage to kind of sustain the run, it's a bad run, but in this case I think it doubled their damage, which is just great. And when we actually stand in the Succubus aura, I guess, it's an aura, when we send you the aura, we also do get increased 30% damage, so that's good, because that does not scale off soy milk, so we just get a flat base bonus depending on what the damage is. So that means that essentially every damage upgrade is also an additional benefit of a damage upgrade, just because we have that Succubus. And if I'm standing in it, you can see that our damage is 4.11, which is just above base damage, and I think it's enough to actually sustain the run. We're not just killing enemies instantly, but I think it's enough to actually keep going. Remember, this is our base damage, but our tier rate is severely increased, and I always say that having more tier rate is good. I still think we're kind of limited by the factor that enemies bounce around, but as soon as I enter the Isaac fight, I'll show you that this is actually not that bad, because I do rely mainly on my tiers to kill Isaac and just kill enemies in general, if I can afford it. Another bonus here is Multidimensional Baby, definitely, because as soon as we enter the room, what happens is all familiars spawn on top of us, which means we're gaining the benefit of the aura of the Succubus, but also Multidimensional Babies right on top of us, which means as long as we keep shooting, our shots are doubled, so we're essentially doubling our damage as well there. So then we're dealing like 8 to 6, maybe even 12 damage, depending on which aura from the aura item we have. In this case, we got the red aura, and that really did kind of increase our DPS. Before we had blue aura, which had no effect, because again, we are at the tier cap. And the soy milk is also bad in that sense that it doesn't only obviously reduce your damage, but I think it makes you unexcited for the best items in the game. Usually when you find a damage item or tears upgrade item, you're excited because you know that your damage is going to increase, you know that the run is going to be easier. But when you have soy milk, when you find a tears upgrade item, you're like, this doesn't help me, this is useless in this case. And when you find a damage upgrade item, you're not as excited because you're like, pentagram, that's usually good, but in this case it's gonna only give me like 0.2 damage, and because most of my shots don't even hit because the enemies bounce around, it's not even that helpful. So enough harping on soy milk, and I'll just show you. In this case you can see that it does deal some decent damage. Of course in this case we had the explosive shot, which makes fires on the ground, and for some reason whenever I commentate I forget the names of the items, but essentially the item that leaves fires on the ground. In this case this is the fire mine. I mentioned it literally like 5 minutes ago in the video and I forgot what it's called, but it's fire mine, and you can see the fire mine does work really well with soy milk because we're shooting so many shots, and there's a good chance that at least one of those shots, just because of the volume of them, will produce flames, and those flames do deal some base contact damage. And when you have a bunch of them in the room, and when you have an enemy like Blue Baby, he does teleport around, and he does have a tendency to teleport in those flames, and obviously the more flames there are in the room, the higher the chance of him actually going to those flames and then just receiving a ton of damage. What was great about this run is, first of all, I like difficult runs, and I really like the fact that we had to kind of struggle with this one, and I really like that we had like a unique Vin condition. So instead of just relying on our tears like we usually do, we kind of had to combine our tears, our flies, our familiars, our objectives, to kind of combine all of that in one little knit package. And this run also suffered from the fact that we didn't really have much luck, which means that we were kind of low on consumables. So in a lot of senses this was a very skill based run, at least my run, but I did notice that a lot of people had a very easy time with it. I think they found the mind, I think they found the void, which would be great on the second floor, because I think the second floor contained 5 book items, so when you suck all of them up, I'm not really sure if I get the bookwork transformation, but that would definitely help because it essentially doubles your damage, but also you just get a bunch of effects for free. So effects like Book of Shadows, Book of Revelations, I think even Book of the book that gives you Black Heart. Why do I forget the names of the items? But nevertheless, just 5 books in one would be great in that situation, because we didn't really have a good spacebar item. But nevertheless, we did finish in a really comfortable spot in 251st. Obviously not top 100 like we usually do, but again, with weak runs or maybe runs like this, they do rely a bit on variance. If someone does read up on maybe which pets to take, they might have a better run just based on that, or maybe just someone got a bit luckier than us. Nevertheless, I'm happy that I actually did manage to conquer this run and caved in the end, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as you did. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.